How is he sound? He's sounding
As
fantastic.
he's sounding. That was a nice
I thought that was the
little,
producer. I didn't
that was
realize
a
he had
nice
it.
little alternate cut of Teach Your Children. I like that.
8:05 in the region.
It is.
That voice is Larry the K, who so kindly got up early to join me and chat about all things.
Big dogs, cool. Oh, wait, no, that was Gino's bit.
Oh.
I'm stealing. Sorry.
Cool cats and kittens.
Cool cats.
I forget who's that
wood
thing.
bats and stovepipe hats or something.
Okay, so we were talking about education.
Yes.
We were talking a little bit about, voucher program, Catholic school, all that fun stuff. I know. So, for instance, I had the LT on last week, as I like to call him, and he talked about our budget.
That's Lieutenant Governor.
The Lieutenant Governor to you.
Lit Gov.
So we talked about something, and I know it caught your attention, is we talked about, so the state of Indiana has a $44 billion budget, and $22 billion of that, so roughly half, if my math is correct, goes to education. Mm-hmm. And he specifically said he thought that was too much.
Yeah, much too much money.
Okay.
Much too much money.
According
to your buddy LT.
In revisiting it, it seemed like he was talking specifically about higher education and not necessarily education in general.
Well, that's
and I know,
good.
Like President Trump has been at it with Harvard and things like that. So here becomes
wait, hold on. President Trump's been at it with Harvard. Yeah, fine and well. What was Beckwith's concern? Was it DEI or some other boogeyman?
I don't think he really has those concerns.
He has no boogeyman.
He did not really talk about boogeyman, and that's why
Well, that's good.
But it's not. It's always one of those fun things where it's like when you have a politician here in front of you, you're having a one-on-one, mano-y-mano. Everybody, we all agree on things, and then everybody goes back to Indianapolis and does the exact opposite.
Well, yeah.
But again, he's the LT. I don't think he does. He doesn't get to vote on a whole lot of things. I think LT just kind of meets people, hangs out, and he went skydiving the other day, and he went to Guitar Center.
Nice. That's right. Yeah, I heard that.
So like if I had a government gig, I would be LT. I would just be going to events, hanging out with people, eating some chicken, going skydiving. It's a perfect job for me.
Nobody complained about that.
Right. So okay. They complained about his truck because he bought a truck that was too expensive or something. I can't keep track of it. So here's my
go ahead. Partisan school board's truck.
I was going to go there eventually. Okay. So here's my question as an educator. It seems to me that one of the biggest issues in education, and I use the example of like Democrats, for instance, when the Gary Mayer was running for governor, he used the term fully fund education. I was always curious what that number is. Is there
when the Gary Mayer was running for governor? Who was that?
Yeah, when Mayor Melton was running for governor.
Oh, yes.
He used the term.
That's right.
He used this all the
fully
time.
Funded.
He used the term fully fund education.
Yep.
And I was always curious.
That's a good phrase,
I would love
fully funded.
Right, but I always wanted to sit him down and say, is that a number? Is there a number that you've done a study and there's a report somewhere that says, we're 80% of the way there? And so that's always my question about, because one of the things going back to when I got run out of Munster over the referendum is that I had this question because I would look into education spending, for instance, per pupil on a national level. And one of the things that was very interesting is that, so Connecticut was the number one spender and West Virginia was the lowest spender. And their test scores correlated to that, okay? Mm-hmm. But in the middle, it was just kind of a big mix. It didn't. So what this really showed is that the per pupil spending didn't really have an equatorial relationship.
Equitable
relationship. And so, for instance, I was reading a story from Illinois Policy where they had a charter school that spent $93,000 for pupil and didn't have an appreciable effect on test scores.
Oh, no, charter schools are not the panacea. We've known that
for
years.
I'm asking. But so that's sort of the thing, is that there's this philosophy that more spending equals better results. And so my question as an educator is, to me, it seems like the biggest issue in education is basically the parents, or is let's be honest, or the idea, you have people that come in here and say, I spend half my time making sure my kids had breakfast and have clothes and dealing with emotional issues. And sort of what I hear is that a classroom teacher gets all these things thrown at them.
Well, yeah.
That the system should be helping them deal with. So that takes you away from educating because you spend, and again, I know you got to balance that fine line, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But what I hear a lot of times from educators is they spend so much time dealing with issues that they shouldn't have to deal with.
That is a common complaint. Yes, we shouldn't have to deal with. Great. Like I said, I'm going to say this. I don't think there is an answer.
Right.
I think it comes down and I've heard this arguments from family members, and it comes down to classroom control. It comes down to what you're going to tolerate as a teacher, and so on. Now, where does the blame lie? Where does the blame lie, if that's what you're asking? Sometimes I meet the parents and I say this, negative or positive. Well, if you plant corn, you're going to get corn.
You reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow. Chickens come home to roost. All those other fun little idioms. That's part of it sometimes. Sometimes, too, the school, and again, common story, the school fails in its mission of discipline. I look at the cell phone thing, okay? A local school system where I have a very trusted colleague who works there, their phones, the phone policy is enforced to the letter.
Put it in the pouch when you get there or whatever
Pouch,
it is.
however they do it there, or if you're caught with it, or if it's out in class, they take care of it. They don't send you out to class, send you back, slap on the wrist.
Right.
It gets taken care of, and it does work at that school system, according to my friend and a few of her colleagues. Now, where I work, as with every school system in Indiana, cell phones are not allowed in the building. That is state law. The enforcement is something else entirely. And if there is lax enforcement, coupled with the other issues schools are facing right now, yeah, that stuff gets lost in the shuffle, for sure. So I would say enforcement of the rules should be a little more equitable and put out across the board. But if you don't have factor A, B, and C to get to D, which might be discipline, D for discipline, right? You can't. That fails. So what are the other things that are going along with this? We have to look at the whole big picture, Chuck. Not just why is little Johnny MFing me up one side and down the other this morning at 7:30, right? Why is he doing that? There are so many more things that go into that. And I know you know that. It's a hard question to answer. It's a very hard question to answer.
And that becomes my inherent issue with government is we have this complicated issue. Should we get to the root cause of it? No. Let's throw more money at it. Let's create a new board. Let's create another layer of government.
True. And we saw that with some of the laws here. Create another layer for Bitcoin blockchain investigation or whatever that new law is. Well, now we're creating something brand new. Are they going about it the right way? Yeah, they're investigating. What's going to come out of it?
Well, even like you wanted to talk specifically about declaring a party in school board elections. Oh, I caught you off guard on that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so again, interesting. This becomes another interesting government question of: are you fixing a broken? Is there a broken system that needs to be fixed?
Is there a need,
or are you just doing it to do it? Or even we mentioned earlier about this idea of constantly: should the governor appoint somebody? Should be elected? They're elected now. They're appointed again. This whole we just keep shuffling things and not accomplishing anything, but it makes for a good soundbite.
I don't know what a partisan school board is going to do. Or partisan school board elections. What's that going to look like? We don't know yet because we've never had them. Many places don't, and they won't. And I think they should keep it apolitical. After all, are you forwarding the agenda or are you educating our youth? What are you doing? And then, too, they say if somebody comes up, well, I'm a Democrat. Well, you're just for indoctrination, so we're not voting for you. Well, I'm a Republican. Well, you're going to do away with public schools, so we're not voting for you either. Once you put a label to that, you kind of shut down as to what you hear out of that candidate.
Right, and that's why
I'm guilty of it too. I mean,
we talked about that even on the local level. Just like when Bob's in here, being a Republican running for town council immediately means you're a Trumper, right?
Yeah.
Or something like, are you
got run
Trump,
out of Munster, so you're the Frankenstein's monster.
Right. But so, I mean, that becomes, or does this adding the partisan to it, does that mean that more money will flow into school board elections?
No.
Is George Soros and the Koch brothers going to be funding your local school board election?
Yeah, right.
Now the school boards are going to cost. It's going to cost $2 billion to get on the school board.
See, well, that's it. And then you guys were talking about it on the air here. I think it was Kuziak. Then the idea that you got to wait your turn. You got to wait your turn.
Now, you hear that all the time.
Whereas anybody, the carpet, could run for school board.
Right.
Right now, once we declare, well, Chuck's running as an independent or a libertarian. Well, there's another libertarian, and waiting for that position.
The libertarians wouldn't do that, to be fair. I would let anybody.
I'm sure it's all milk and honey in land, libertarian land.
Yeah. So, but that idea of, well, we like who's there now. You're not right. You haven't paid your dues.
Right.
All these kind of things.
Right.
So, and that's a weird thing that people don't understand about politics is that there is a guy, in this case, one guy or the other, three of us that have to basically decides if you're on the ballot or not.
Yeah.
So or they could throw you off the ballot if you're not Republican or Democrat.
I want to run as a Democrat for the school board.
Right. But then if you voted Republican 2 years ago, they could throw you off the ballot.
And that may have happened.
Yeah. So, right.
Primary is the only place you got to vote straight ticket.
Right. So,
right? And it's just you and your vote in that booth at the general. So why not? But you're right. They find out, well, he voted Republican. He voted this. He voted National Socialist, whatever.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, then no. We can't have you. But at the expense of good ideas. At the expense of.
Right. Or exactly what's happening.
That's a larger problem, of course.
Look at what's happening right now in the Senate with Tom Tillis. Is how dare you go against us? Yeah. We are going to primary you and Rand Paul.
Bring it down to what Oklahoma's the Department of Education in Oklahoma. Jesus. So much so is they're writing the history,
is this one of the creational?
That I'm going back to Jan 6th. The history books, my wheelhouse, social studies. They're already putting those in the books for the kids to question, to do this, to do that, when it's already been litigated. See, that's the one thing I don't like. It bothered me a little bit when 9/11 started creeping into the U.S. history books.
Okay.
And how they wrote it. And you could see from different publisher to publisher, little slants here and there. But what I'm seeing now in places like Oklahoma, they are writing these things as if it is fact. They hide behind, well, let's make the kid think. It's already been adjudicated.
Okay, so here becomes the question, though. Okay, so we're
going to go on for another 3 hours.
You're in a position right now where Donald Trump is president, whether you like him or not, and if you have a top-down education system, then he could go in right now and he could put together a committee and start writing history books, right?
Sure.
So, again, this is where I ask, in this case, where you don't necessarily like the guy in charge, the guy sitting in the White House, should we allow government that much power that Donald Trump could feasibly sit down right now and start writing history books and saying, state of Indiana, state of Illinois, state of Oklahoma, you will take this history book or we'll cut off your funding?
Well, within at least 2 weeks, we can do that. But yeah, I mean, but
that's my point.
Isn't that where it's coming?
But so that's my point, though, is that that's what worries me is to have a top-down government like that, or even this is what I always talk about: these idea that your state can do what it wants. We use the example of like Wisconsin and the drinking laws. Hey, Wisconsin, you can keep the drinking age of 18, but we're going to cut off all of your highway funding if you do. You could do what you want, but we're going to cut off all of your federal funding if you do that. So that becomes the thing, is that I would much rather have 50 unique states with 50 unique approaches, and basically what was the analogy, let the cream of the crop kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Where if Oklahoma's doing something, they're teaching all kinds of things that don't make sense. You say, look, at a certain point, you say everybody else is doing better than us. This isn't working, right? At some point, the onus is on the voters. Mm-hmm. Like, I voted for these guys. They created these crazy history books. Mm-hmm. Either I'm moving,
or they approved. Let's put it that way.
Okay,
I did book adoption for the state 1 year. Yeah, we could go on. We opened up another can of worms here. It's already 20 after, Chuck. This is crazy. I don't believe that we should have partisan school boards, is what it comes down to.
I don't
think
disagree.
It will cause more damage than it will good. You may disagree, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm here for free, folks.
Yeah, we don't get paid either way.
We don't get paid. You don't get paid for this?
No. I don't.
Oh my God.
What? Joe gets paid. Joe's like, I get paid.
You better get paid. You don't. Is this part of an internship for the school?
Well, until Friday actually. So hopefully next week Jed will start paying me.
He's gonna take things seriously next Monday.
Gonna get that crowbar out and open up the wallet.
Then I put in the real hours.
Yeah, I put in the real hours.
Okay, so what? You got to go, or how? I forget. What are we doing?
Yeah, I do have to go.
Okay,
so last week of summer school, baby.
Okay, so fantastic. Larry the K, thank you so much. I've appreciated your
Chuck,
time.
Thank you. And if you're doing this again, if Jim, has you doing this is the last week for summer school. You want me in, even if it's a Friday and you're subbing for Kuziak. Whatever.
Well, he's going to Mexico for like a month. So
Is he really?
Well, like you said, we're the bottom of the barrel here. So there's
somebody
nobody
said.
left.
I think Dave said
Yeah,
that. Yes,
so-
scraping in so many words.
So they just call it the summer of scraping the bottom of the barrel with Chuck.
Scrape the barrel with Chuck.
Yeah, there you go. So Larry,
That's the new show
There you
ID.
go, scraping the barrel. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you getting up early. It's been a lot of
Charles,
fun. We'll
thank
do it
you
again
so
soon.
much. I hope so. I hope so. I had
we'll
a
be
good
back.
time.
We'll do another segment before I got to go. So we'll take your calls after this on Summer of Chuck 2.